Although the majority of football fans may never be interested in discussing any form of defensive styles or tactics used by their teams, having a solid defensive system is the only reasonable way of winning trophies. Hello there everyone, it is Mitso here and welcome to the first episode of the brand new Mitso podcast. Today we will have a discussion or a comparison between the zonal and man-marking defensive systems. Everybody knows how the attackers receive all the applause for scoring goals, even if these goals were simple tap-ins. The supporters want to see the ball at the back of the net. In the meantime, the defenders are responsible to do all the hard work to keep a clean sheet. Managers spend a decent amount of time to come up with a suitable defensive style that fits the abilities of the defenders in the squad. When describing the incredible season in which Manchester United won their 19th Premier League title, Sir Alex Ferguson stated, "We went 24 games unbeaten before losing at Wolves on 5 February 2011 and finished with only 4 defeats. In other words, the team won 34 out of 38 matches. Obviously, setting up a stable defensive system took months of practicing and trying out different formations in friendlies during the pre-season tournaments. Whether a team will use 3, 4 or even 5 players at the back, the overall defensive phase will always be considered as either a man-marking system or a zonal system." Throughout the past couple of years, the zonal marking systems became popular thanks to the great tactical flexibility that it offers. However, man-marking systems are considered as a classical defensive strategy. This topic has always been controversial between football fans, as some of them believe that zonal systems are a must to maintain satisfactory results, while on the other hand, some people are convinced that man-marking should still be used by any team willing to win silverware. Man-to-man marking defensive style, also known as man-marking, is a classical strategy in football. Defending against Lionel Messi, who is arguably the finest football player on the planet, is not an apparent task to be given to the back line. But what if there was one defensive style or organization that may help simplify that task? The idea behind man-marking is actually pretty simple. Each player on the pitch should mark another player from the opposition. By marking them, the players need to try and block the passing lanes in order to keep the opposition out of the play. This will directly lead that team to have more negative possession. During these situations, the opponent will still have the ball, but they will not be creating any opportunities since their forwards and attacking midfielders are being marked. In the 80s, man-marking started to disappear as a whole defensive strategy. Nevertheless, this style is still being implemented in modern football. For instance, some coaches still use the man-to-man marking strategy to defend corners and set pieces. Another example of using this classical defensive style was shown by Zinedine Zidane when Real Madrid faced Barcelona in April 2017. Throughout that game, Zidane asked Casemiro to strictly mark Lionel Messi, so a manager can use the man-to-man marking strategy and apply it on one player only, while using different defensive styles and even switching up the tactics during the course of the game. So Casemiro did not actually have a specific position in that match, he just followed Messi around the pitch, with and without the ball. According to the Econo Coaches Academy, there are 2 key concepts for Marcelo Bielsa in the defensive phase: individual markings and defending the wall passes. Starting with the first one, it has been a distinctive characteristic of Bielsa's teams throughout all his career. Players are given very specific order to follow their opponent around the pitch. This allows very aggressive defending when an opponent player receives the ball, as he will always have a defender behind him not allowing him to turn. In Bielsa's game model, it is of vital importance how their players defend the wall passes. The reason is that when pressing man-to-man, if one of the players loses their mark, an imbalance is created immediately in the defending team, which could easily lead into a clear chance. To know more about defending the wall passes, I advise you guys to continue this analysis report about Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United, where you will be able to watch a full video explaining this topic and much more about his football style. You can sign up for free right now and start watching the video directly when using the code MITSOJR, link in the description. Despite the fact that man-marking is not being used as the only defensive style for most teams recently, this strategy might actually come back to the scene. As an illustration, trends in fashion are not regularly brand new. In fact, aged stuff is often introduced again after 20 years or so. Some people believe that man-to-man marking as a whole defensive style will start being applied more often once again. Plenty of football pundits have explained how this assumption may be true, since all it takes to create a trend in the world of football tactics is one manager succeeding in applying this old-school strategy one more time, or even introducing some kind of a revamp to it. A valid example to that is how the 4-3-3 formation was duplicated by many teams around different leagues after its huge success under Josep Guardiola during the 2010-2011 season. To apply a certain tactic successfully, the managers need specific players that can perform their roles on the pitch. Coaches need to identify what is unique about their players to achieve the most out of them. To create a tactical trend, a manager will need luck beside their hard work and overall development of players. Although these arguments completely make sense to some fans, football pundits and the majority of head coaches still believe that zonal systems became more popular for a reason. Zonal defensive systems have a noticeably low individual errors percentage. In this strategy, the players do not mark their opposition, but instead they mark the zone or the area around the ball owner. Managers usually ask their players to mark a certain region instead of following a player around the pitch. Furthermore, the team tries to keep the ball outside the defensive block. Basically, if someone draws lines connecting the outer players of any formation, the inner space will be called the block. Generally, a block can be deconstructed into three categories: a low, a medium, and a high block. As long as the ball is kept outside this block, the zonal system is being applied correctly. Once the opposition plays the ball to any player inside this block, the team applies high pressure and forces the opposition to move outside. Teams with such a defensive identity tend to succeed compared to a side who doesn't. Individual mistakes are not often highlighted in a zonal defensive system, since the team moves as a single unit to keep the lines compact. Moreover, the players can cover the spaces behind their teammates while moving around. Although losing the shape of the block might be due to poor positioning from a player, the fact that fellow players can cover up these errors results in making those individual mistakes less distinguishable. Zonal systems give the players enough time to fix their positions and reorganize to keep the compactness of the system. For example, while the opposition is building the attack and passing the ball between their defensive line. That is the time where the team moves to the center of the pitch to stay compact. Another example is when one player applies high pressure. The other players use that time to quickly fix any issues within the system. Since vertical and horizontal compactness of the system are preserved, managers ask one player to apply high pressure once the team is out of shape. Concentrating on such small aspects of the game makes up the difference between a successful manager and a normal one. When describing how Klopp had an impact on the signing of several players when coaching Mainz, Honigstein mentioned how money was not the only factor when buying a new talent. The player was invited to Mainz with his wife or girlfriend. Klopp would speak to him alone at first, for 3, 4, 5 hours. By knowing his players better, Jurgen Klopp was able to succeed in transferring his ideas to those players who were then able to demonstrate it on the pitch. An example of the coverage in a zonal defensive system can be shown in Liverpool's 2019-2020 season under the management of Jurgen Klopp, as the midfielders covered the fullbacks while providing the attacking support. Giving the players the opportunity to move freely for a couple of minutes without being exposed will help in keeping the defensive shape, as the other players share their defensive duties. Zonal systems and man-marking strategies will consistently be compared, considering the fact that these two defensive styles are the foundations of defending football. But what if a manager starts to use both systems during one defensive phase? Teams with 4 players at the back seek to use both strategies while defending, as one centre-back is responsible to mark the striker, while the other defender covers the zone between the midfield and defensive lines. Examples of mixing the two strategies is embodied in Zonal-Man-Marking, which is a term that was used by plenty of head coaches recently. Basically, the players in this system are required to cover a specific zone on the pitch and mark the main player in that zone. In modern football, it is infrequent to identify a team strictly using a single defensive strategy. Case in point, Liverpool used to switch between the zonal system and the man-marking strategy depending on the score of the match. This variety in football tactics is the reason behind the high demand of video analysts in first-class teams. So, as every defensive strategy has its merits and demerits, managers will have the possibility of using the preferable defensive style after analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of the opposition. Defensive tactics are often overlooked upon by plenty of football fans. Maintaining a rigid defensive system is one of the toughest objectives for a new manager. Man-marking systems might simplify the duty of defending against an exceptional player. This strategy might return to the scene if any source of renovation was implemented to it in order to be used in modern football. On the other hand, zonal systems provide tactical flexibility and assure fewer individual errors as the players share the defensive responsibilities. It also allows the team to cover up any mistakes committed over a short period of time. New tactical strategies of combining both styles developed over the past couple of years. Comparing both systems will remain on top of the controversial topics in the world of football tactics. So, how would you set up your tactics for the next game? So that was it, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Let me know what topics you would like to see on the podcast and if there are any guests you would like to see here as well. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.